With a much anticipated Super Bowl 54 between the 49ers and the Chiefs coming up, I thought it'd be a good time to break down the history of this game. I want to get into the origin of the playoffs, how it gained public interest so quickly, and in what ways it's evolved since its inception.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
So without further ado, let's jump right into it. The Super Bowl is the biggest annual American sporting event. It stands as the culmination of the National Football League's regular season and playoff, and just making it to the big game is a huge accomplishment for the two contending teams. But only one can be named world champions, a ridiculous title considering there are no teams outside of the USA. So yeah, I guess you can technically call yourself world champions, but you only get that title by default. It's like if every other country's teams forfeited, except, actually, it's worse than that, because they never had an invite to compete in the first place. So you're really just a self-proclaimed world champion, which is basically what UCF did when they proclaimed themselves the 2017 national champion, despite not even making it to the playoffs. I guess you can say you're the champs if you want, but you didn't play anyone for it. By those standards, I could self-proclaim myself the world champion of YouTube videos that no one watches, but does it really count if I don't kill every other undiscovered YouTuber with my bare hands? Who's to say? The current path to the Super Bowl is almost completely different than the original format. So now, I will give a long and winded breakdown of the current format because it's needed context going forward or whatever. Alright, here we go. Let's power through this. After all 32 NFL teams conclude a 16-game regular season, only 12 are invited to the playoffs. 6 from the National Football Conference and 6 from the American Football Conference. Each of these conferences consists of 4 divisions, North, South, East, and West, and each of these divisions consists of 4 teams. The teams with each division with the highest winning percentage are invited to the NFL playoffs. These 8 divisional winners are named seeds 1 through 4 and receive a bye through the first round. The remaining 4 spots in the playoffs are called wild cards and are given to 2 remaining teams from each conference with the highest winning percentage. In the first round, wildcard teams battle it out with the 3 and 4 seeds in hopes to move on to the second round, where winners from the first round meet the first and second seeds. The winners of these games move on to the third round, where they play for a berth in the conference championship game. The 2 conference champions then get to play in the Super Bowl. If you're watching this video, you likely already know all of this. But this has not always been the way the Super Bowl contenders have been chosen. In fact, from the NFL's founding in 1920 to 1932, there was no championship game at all. Instead, the champion was determined by votes at the annual team owners meeting in the league's first 3 years. That didn't really work though. Probably because everyone voted for their own teams. I don't know that, but I would. So from 1924 to 1932, the rules were changed so that the team with the best winning percentage was deemed the champion. But this format was also problematic, as seen in 1932 when the Chicago Bears and the Portsmouth Spartans tied at the end of the season with an identical winning percentage of .857. It's Portsmouth, right? Portsmouth? It doesn't matter. Look, they're not a team anymore. The Green Bay Packers had more wins than both teams, but a lower winning percentage, as they played more games that season. Fun fact, 1932 was also the year the first Aaron Rodgers State Farm commercial aired. Get it? Because he's been doing those cheesy commercials forever? And using the word cheesy is also a joke in itself because the Packers call themselves cheeseheads. Comedy! So after the Bears and Spartans tied in winning percentage, a tie-breaking game was decided to be played. Because of storms, the game was played indoors on an 80-yard field. Rules were therefore modified for the championship game. The Bears won 9-0, and the idea of a regular championship game was born. Wait, why did I include that about the indoor field? I really don't know. It seems unnecessary looking back now, but it's recorded, and as everyone knows, there is literally no way to delete it, so it's there forever. Technology, am I right? The first official NFL championship game happened the next year and featured the top teams from the newly created conferences. Playoff games were possible, but only if top same conference teams had a tying record. This is the system that would stand until 1966, though it was far from perfect. Because only the top teams from each conference were invited to the championship game, the teams with the best records did not always get to play. Sound familiar, 2017 UCF? It should, because that's the year you were not national champions, just like every other year, mainly because you're undeserving. Occasionally, the team with the second best record would be in the same conference as the team with the best, but would not be allowed to play for the championship because they were in the wrong conference, meaning the championship would be between the team with the best record and third best record. Things started to change in 1967 after the NFL expanded to 16 teams. Because of the new number of teams, the conferences were each split into 2 divisions, with 4 teams in each. The 4 division champs would advance to the now regular playoff system, and this worked for 3 years until another tie threw a wrench into the plans. In 1967, both the Baltimore Colts and the Los Angeles Rams ended their season with a record of 11-1-2 for the lead in the Coastal Division. The Colts entered the last game of the season undefeated, but lost to the Rams and therefore missed the playoffs despite being tied for the best win-loss record and having a better record than the 3 other divisional winners. So after the AFL-NFL merger wrapped up in 1970, a wildcard game was added to the playoffs. What's the AFL, you're probably asking? What a stupid question. Oh my goodness, this is so embarrassing for you. But I'm glad you asked. The American Football League was a professional football league, obviously, from 1960 to 1969 that rivaled the NFL. It owned franchises like the Boston Patriots, the Miami Dolphins, the Oakland Raiders, and the Kansas City Chiefs, just to name a few. For years, the AFL and NFL were fierce competitors, but in 1966, capitalism happened and merger talks began. Each league had its own playoff and champions. But in January of 1967, the 2 league champions met up to play for what was then called the AFL-NFL Championship game, but is now often referred to as Super Bowl I. Green Bay won the first 2 Super Bowls, and the AFL's New York Jets won the third in 1969. Prior to the 1970 season, the merger finally completed and a new playoff system was needed, as well as a new league structure entirely. The collective 26 teams were divided into 2 new conferences, the National Football Conference and the American Football Conference. Each conference had 3 divisions, and the divisional champions, along with a wild card from each conference, would make the 8-team playoff. An 8-team playoff, just like what UCF has been clamoring for years, even though they still wouldn't have made it in the year they falsely claimed they were national champions. Originally, the home teams in playoffs were decided by a yearly rotation between the 3 divisional winners, but the rotation system proved problematic, and a seeding system was put in place in 1975. Now the franchises with the higher seeds would be given home field advantage, so it was earned rather than random. In 1978, the regular season and playoffs were expanded. 2 regular season games were added, bringing the set schedule to 16 games, and 2 more wild cards, one from each conference, were added to the playoff mix. The 10-team playoff was used through the 1989 season, and the Oakland Raiders became the first wildcard team to win a Super Bowl following the 1980 season. The 10-team playoff, you say? Just like what UCF fans have been also begging for, besides the fact that they wouldn't have made it in 2017. You know, the year they tell every uncaring person they see in which they won the national championship, which is a complete lie. In 1990, a third wildcard team from each conference was added, bringing it to the current day 12-team playoff. A 12-team playoff, like what UCF fans have also been asking for, because then, and only then, would they have barely edged in 2017. You know, 2017, the year UCF says they won in the Men's Basketball Elite 8 to advance to the Final Four. Oh man, I did it again. I'm so funny and good at this thing that absolutely nobody watches. This NFL format worked until 2002, when the league faced another huge change. The league expanded to 32 teams, and the conferences were divided into 4 divisions each rather than 3. It was in this year that the present-day format was put in place. The 4 divisional winners and 2 wildcards were seeded 1 through 6, with the top 2 seeds receiving byes, and the highest seed in each round guaranteed to first play the lowest seed, with seeding also determining home field advantage. There have been many proposed changes for the playoffs over the years, but that's enough info for a whole other video entirely. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like me to make. So who has the most Super Bowls, you're probably asking? Well, right now it's a tie between the Steelers and the Patriots, who each have 6. The 49ers and Cowboys are right behind with 5 Super Bowl wins, followed by the Packers and Giants with 4. Additionally, the Patriots lead the NFL with 11 Super Bowl appearances, followed by the Cowboys, Steelers, and Broncos with 8 apiece. Today's system is far from perfect, but it's always fun, and this year's rendition will feature 2 great teams that will hopefully give us an exciting game till the very end. So how would you like to see the playoff change? Or would you leave it as it is? Tell me below and be sure to like and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Until then, Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.